Hey, this is Simple Living with Biata. I'm a wife and a mom to our beautiful girl, and my passion is to live more simply, naturally, and self-sufficiently. Less than a year ago, we packed up our 2,200 square foot home, moved into a 300 square foot trailer that we renovated, and we started searching for land to build our dream homestead. I'm a firm believer in being able to do anything you put your mind to, so I'm learning things I never thought I'd learn. This week, I'm continuing to clear trees to prep our land for the build. Never in my life have I wanted to use a chainsaw, and now I can confidently say it's one of my favorite tools to use. I'm stoked to be on this journey, and I'm so excited for what's in store. I was hoping to go to the property today, but things weren't really working out this morning, and I didn't have a ton of time. So anyways, we stayed home. I rested up this morning. I showered. I look like an actual functioning human being. And we're gonna go do some errands today. So I went to Canadian Tire to get some rope and a hatchet strap so that when I'm at the property and I'm cutting a tree that's a little bit tricky, I can use it as a guide. Next, it was time to fuel up, and it's actually so expensive. I can't even get over it. How insane is that? That wasn't even a full tank. Okay, so we're getting light bar oil because it's still cold outside, and it's better to do the light bar oil versus the medium in the winter months. And then we got some gas and engine oil mix, and I'm thinking about making the switch to doing my own mixture of like premium gasoline from the gas station versus getting one of these jugs of gas and oil mix because they're pretty expensive. So that was it for the errands, and now it's time to rest up for a couple of days of cutting trees. Okay, so I am back at it today. I'm gonna clean up this hemlock and the cedar that fell last week when my bar got pinched and I was SOL. And then I'm gonna move on to this group of trees right here. Okay, so I'm gonna try to send this cedar here that way, and I'm gonna try to send that yellow birch, I think, over to the other brush pile there. When I cut a larger tree, I make sure I always do a notch, and this makes sure that the tree is going in the direction that you want it to. The notch goes about 1/3 into the tree, and you just have to make sure you don't overcut. Sometimes it takes a couple of extra cuts to get it right. Next up, I do some guidelines for the back cut, and when you're doing the back cut, you have to make sure you don't cut through the hinge. The hinge helps bring the tree in the direction it's supposed to go. Okay, it went exactly where I wanted it to go, right into the brush pile. Now it's time to limb the tree and move the logs into the log piles. So this is where that cedar and yellow birch were. And now I have to clean them up a little bit more. I have cut down 4 trees so far, and now I'm going to start clearing some little small baby stuff to just get it out of the way, and I'll probably be able to see all the way up to the build site, which will be kind of cool. So the build site is at the top of this hill, and I'm removing all of the trees on this hill so that we can have a nice view of the wetlands, but I am going to be covering the ground with cover crops, blueberry bushes, raspberry bushes, and even apple trees to mitigate soil erosion. The reason we're cutting down the trees and not just leaving them as they are in their beautiful state is because we do really want the land cleared to be able to grow food, to raise chickens, and to be able to be a little bit more self-sufficient. So on to day 2 of cutting trees this week, and today I'm working on this section here. So like I said, the notch is super important, and this is one of the most standard notches to make, but I did screw up a little bit on this notch and I cut a bit too deep on the bottom on this side here. This caused the hinge to be super short on this side, and the hinge is what controls the tree, so I need to be a bit more careful next time. So you can see here that the hinge on this side was like super thin and the hinge on this side was super thick. And of course it's time to limb the trees, clean the brush, and put the logs in their specific piles to stay nice and organized. So this is, although not perfect, more of an open-faced notch, and this just allows for a little bit more control when felling the tree. I ended up going out and getting an axe and a wedge so I could hammer the wedge in at the back of the trees to just allow myself a little bit more safety. And of course, it's always important to get to your safety zones because the tree can bounce back and stuff like this can happen. So this one's a little bit better, but I'm noticing that I'm not cutting this side enough to make it even. Okay, I'm gonna clean up those 3 trees and then I'm gonna have some lunch and probably take a few more down, and that will be the end of my day. So I'm making a pile of maples separate to the cedar logs because I want to stay nice and organized, and have my hardwood in a pile because it's so much better for burning. Is this long hair problems? I forgot a hair elastic today, so my hair's been tucked into my bra strap. So this tree's a little bit funny. It has an S-curve shape and it's leaning forward at the bottom and it's leaning back at the top. It's leaning that way, but I want it to go this way. Sometimes I get the notch perfect on the first shot and sometimes it takes me a while, but that's a-okay. I'd rather get it right than be rushing and the tree go in the wrong direction. So for the back cut on this tree, I was a little bit nervous because the top of the tree was leaning backwards. So I used my wedge and hammered it in to make sure my chainsaw didn't get pinched. And I kept hammering it as I cut it through to make sure that the tree would go in the direction I wanted it to go in. And it landed perfectly in the brush pile, which is exactly where I wanted it to go. So it was easier for cleanup. So this is pretty cool. This is where the build site is going to be, and our big front open windows are going to be up there, and the view is starting to look so nice. It's going to be angled that way. So that's going to be the view from our living room, minus that big tree. We're taking that down. So on to day number 3 of cutting this week, and I really wanted to work on this section of trees, but it's so dang windy, so that was not going to happen. Instead, I decided to stay safe and just thin out a bunch of tiny trees. So here's the pile of brush, and yesterday there was so many more cedar leaves on here, but the deer have come and eaten them. It's so cute. Whenever I go and sit and have a little bit of a break, deer like pop up out of nowhere. They don't hear the chainsaw going anymore, so they come over here to snack on the cedars that I've cut down, and then all of a sudden I sit up and they're like, and they run away. It's so cute. Anyways, I'm gonna get back to work. I have some more thinning to do this way behind me. I have thinned pretty much everything I need to thin near the build site, so that is great. And then I decided to work on this section here because there were a lot of trees just hung up on each other. So I tried a new technique that my stepdad taught me last week on how to get trees down that are pinned up, and it is undercutting so that the tree trunk keeps falling more and more down as you cut sections off. I was just cutting about 2-foot sections off of the tree, and eventually I got to a point where I just didn't feel safe cutting it anymore. So these 3 trees are still hung up on this huge hemlock, but they're less hung up now. And here's all the brush to prove it. I'm so excited because when it's not as windy, I'm gonna be able to take down pretty much like all of these in here, except for that big poplar in the back I need help with. And then we'll be able to see right into the wetlands. So that's it for this week's episode of clearing trees on our property for our dream homestead. Thank you so much for joining along this journey. And if you could do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe and like button, it's super helpful to push out my content to more people who want to learn. Thanks so much and see you next week.